My name is Emily. I'm 29, and I live in a small rented apartment above a laundromat in Akron, Ohio. It smells like detergent all the time, and I kind of like it. Feels cleaner than my past. I work the night shift at a 24-hour diner off I-77. Not glamorous, not exciting, but it keeps my hands busy and my thoughts quieter. I've been here 6 years. I don't make much, but enough to not go back. Growing up, we lived on the east side of Canton. Me, my mom, and then eventually Rick. He moved in when I was 10. My mom said he was a blessing, said we wouldn't have to boil water on the stove anymore, said the lights wouldn't get cut off again. And for a while, she was right. Rick paid the bills, Rick fixed the sink, Rick brought home frozen pizzas on Fridays, and Rick came into my room when I was 12. He didn't say anything, just stood there in the dark, breathing too loud, and then sat on the edge of my bed. I still remember the weight of the mattress dipping, how my stomach twisted because something in the air felt wrong. When it was over, he said, "Don't tell your mom. It'll ruin everything." I didn't speak for 3 days after that. Mom noticed. Of course she did. She asked what was wrong, gently at first, then annoyed when I didn't answer. I tried once, I really did. I told her he came into my room at night, that he touched me. Her whole face shifted. First shock, then fear, then something I still can't explain. She told me to sit down. She said, "Emily, baby, I know you're confused. I know you're going through changes, but don't say things like that. Rick pays for this house. He buys your clothes. He's the reason we're not sleeping in a car." I remember that line exactly. He's the reason we're not sleeping in a car. Like that meant what happened didn't count. Like a roof made it okay. She held my face and said, "It was probably just a misunderstanding. You're growing. Maybe you moved in your sleep. Maybe he didn't mean anything. Maybe it was only once." I was 12, and I believed her. I needed to believe her because the other option meant I wasn't safe anymore. So I stayed quiet. I folded myself into a smaller version of me. I wore baggy shirts. I kept my door locked, even though Rick had the keys. After that, everything turned quiet between us. She avoided eye contact. Rick acted normal, like nothing ever happened. He made jokes at dinner, talked about sports, asked me about school like we were some sitcom family with background laughter. But every time he entered a room, my body went stiff. My fingers curled into fists I never used. I started counting the days until I turned 18. But time is a funny thing. It drags when you're waiting for freedom and races when you're trying to escape. Now, years later, I barely speak to my mom. She still sends me texts on my birthday, usually some guilt-laced variation of "I did what I had to do." And Rick? He still lives in the house I grew up in, still waters the lawn, still calls me kiddo when he bumps into me at the grocery store like none of it ever happened. Sometimes I wonder if it really was just once, but I know better. And this story isn't just about Rick, it's about my mom, the person who was supposed to protect me, the one who said, "You're not going to destroy this family over something like that," as if I was the one who did the damage, as if silence was the only way to keep the lights on. I turned 18 on a Tuesday. Rick gave me a card with $20 in it and a joke about how now I could buy a proper bra. My mom made meatloaf and said, "We made it, huh?" Like we had both crossed the finish line of something. I smiled. I thanked them. And the second I could, I left. I moved into a basement apartment with mold on the ceiling and a sink that coughed brown water. But it was mine. And more importantly, no one had a key but me. I didn't go to college. I didn't chase dreams. I just worked. Gas stations, grocery stores, then the diner. Anything with night shifts, fewer people, fewer eyes. I never talked about Rick. Not to friends, not to coworkers, not even to myself. I figured if I kept going, kept staying busy, maybe it would stop echoing. But the thing about silence is that it builds pressure. 2 years ago, I found out Rick was coaching middle school baseball. My hand shook when I saw the photo online, him smiling with a group of boys. One of them couldn't have been older than 12. I called my mom that night, first time in months. I said, "You're okay with this?" She paused, then said, "He's doing good for the community, Emily. Don't start digging up the past." I almost dropped the phone, digging up the past like I had buried it, like I was the one who needed to let it go. I said, "He came into my room. You know that? You knew that." Her voice turned cold, flat. "Emily, it was only once. You said so yourself, and I told you we couldn't afford to lose him. What would you have done if he left? We would have been on the street." That's when it really hit me. She hadn't just protected Rick. She had made a choice, and that choice wasn't me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call the school, file a report, burn it all down. But then my chest started to close up. My breath caught, And just like that, I was 12 again, small, powerless, trying to explain something no one wanted to hear. I didn't call the school. I didn't file anything. I just sat there on my kitchen floor, shaking, my phone screen still lit with the words, "call ended." That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I thought about all the things I lost when I was still too young to understand what loss even meant. Safety, trust, a mother. I thought about that phrase. You're not going to destroy this family because of one mistake. But it wasn't one mistake. It was a system, a transaction. Rick paid the bills. I kept my mouth shut. My mom looked the other way, and the house stayed warm, while I stayed frozen. I started having nightmares again after that. Ones where I was back in that house, back in that twin bed, unable to move, unable to scream, just stuck, watching the door creak open. I tried therapy once. The counselor was nice, but I couldn't say the words. I choked every time. She said, "You're not ready yet." I didn't go back, but something changed. For the first time in my life, I realized I didn't want to keep surviving like this. I wanted something else. Not justice, not revenge. I wanted to stop feeling like the silence was my fault. I just didn't know how yet. It started with a random Tuesday night at the diner. Slow shift, weak tips, coffee burning on the warmer. I was wiping down the counter when I heard someone say my name. Not Miss, not Hey You. My name. Emily? I looked up and saw her. Sarah Brooks, 8th grade, my lab partner. We used to pass notes in math and make fun of Mr. Patterson's squeaky shoes. Then she moved away. Or at least that's what I thought. She looked different, older, sure, but solid, like someone who knew how to stand tall. I wasn't used to people from my past finding me. I wasn't ready for it either. "I thought that was you," she said, smiling like we were still 13. "You work here?" I nodded. "Yeah, pays the rent." She didn't flinch, didn't do that thing where people pretend not to judge you. She just sat down at the counter and asked for a grilled cheese and a black coffee. We talked, at first light stuff, school memories. Where she'd been, turns out she never moved, just transferred schools. Her parents divorced. She became a social worker. That part made me pause. She saw it. She always had a sharp eye, even as a kid. When her food came, she said it softly, not like a question, but a window cracked open just enough for air to get in. "You know, I always thought something felt off with your stepdad." I froze, my hand clamped around the coffee pot. The smell of burnt grounds hit my nose like a punch. She noticed. "Sorry, I shouldn't have said that." "No." I set the pot down. "You're fine, it's just, no one ever said that before, not once." Sarah didn't push. She just nodded and took a slow bite of her sandwich. I stood there, my chest tightening, my throat dry, and then, without planning it, I said the words. He came into my room. Her fork stopped midair. Her eyes lifted to mine, and she just waited. So I kept going. Not all of it. Not the details. Just enough for her to understand. When I was done, she didn't ask why I hadn't told sooner. She didn't ask what I wore. She didn't ask how sure I was. She just said, "I believe you." 3 words, software, steady. Like a rope thrown across a river I'd been drowning in for 17 years. She didn't try to fix it. She didn't tell me to forgive. She didn't rush me to report. She just stayed, ate her grilled cheese, and let me be not alone for once. Before she left, she took out a card. "If you ever want to talk more or do more, call me, no pressure, just in case." I stared at that little rectangle all night after my shift. "Sarah Brooks, MSW, it said in clean, calm font. Under it, Child Advocacy and Crisis Response. That night, I didn't have a nightmare. Instead, I dreamed I was standing in front of my childhood home with a match in my hand. And for the first time, I wasn't scared of the fire. I didn't call Sarah the next day, or the day after that. Her card stayed tucked inside my wallet like some kind of quiet dare. Every time I bought groceries or paid rent, I saw her name beside my debit card, and I'd think, not yet. But something had changed. One night while folding laundry, I opened Facebook out of boredom, something I try not to do much. I don't like watching other people's clean lives, but that night I typed in Rick's name. There he was, Rick Turner. Proud stepdad, coach, family man, griller of the year, or some shit like that. His profile photo was him with a kid on his shoulders. Someone else's child, not mine, not even my half-brother. Thank God I never had one. I clicked through. Post after post, coaching recaps, church BBQs, Happy Mother's Day, notes to my mom with photos of them smiling under patio lights. I sat there staring at the screen like it owed me something. Proof. A sign. An apology that would never come. Instead, what came was a message. From my mom. Just a simple, "Hey, sweetie, we're thinking of visiting you soon. Rick wants to see how you're doing. Let us know what weekend works. Like that was normal, like any of this was normal. I stared at the text for a full hour. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. So I didn't. I closed the phone. I went to work. I served pancakes and bad coffee and smiled at truckers and teens skipping school. I said nothing, like always. But inside, the heat was building, and silence wasn't enough anymore. That weekend, I called Sarah. She picked up on the second ring, like she knew I would. I didn't cry. I didn't stumble. I just said, I need help. Within a week, she had scheduled me to speak to someone at a crisis center downtown. Private, no pressure, just a conversation. I almost canceled twice, but I didn't. I told my story, this time with the words I never used: molestation, assault, denial, maternal betrayal. The woman listened without blinking. She took notes, but not like I was being interrogated, more like she was archiving the truth piece by piece. When I finished, she asked me something no one ever had. Would you want to report this? I sat with that question for what felt like an hour. I don't know, I said. Does it even matter after all this time? Her voice was calm. It does, if it matters to you. So I filed a report, quietly, no announcement. No police at his door, yet just the first legal step. A record, a footprint of what he did, a disruption in the lie he's lived so comfortably. The detective who took the report said something that stayed with me. You'd be surprised how many times we hear the same names. Sometimes a report is the first crack in their wall. Sometimes it's the one that breaks it. I walked home shaken, not because I was scared of Rick, but because for once he might be scared of me. A week later, my mom called again. I let it ring. Then another text came through. Did you talk to someone? Rick got a call from the police. What the hell are you doing, Emily? And suddenly, there it was, the shift, the panic, not from what he did, but from the fact that I spoke. I typed back, I'm doing what you should have done years ago. She called 5 times after that. I didn't answer, because now it wasn't about keeping the house warm. It was about letting the truth burn. It took exactly 12 days for the fallout to start. The first sign was my uncle, her brother, texting me out of nowhere. Hey, Em, your mom's freaking out. Says you're accusing Rick of stuff that's not true. Want to talk? Not are you okay? Not what happened. Just she's freaking out. I didn't respond. A day later, my cousin Becca messaged me on Instagram. Girl, I don't know what's going on, but Rick's been removed from his coaching job. My mom said it's because of something you said. And there it was, something you said, as if truth was gossip, as if I had started drama, not disclosed a crime. What I had said wasn't even the full truth, just enough to mark the surface. The detective called to confirm Rick had been temporarily suspended from his coaching duties, pending an internal review. That's how they say it when a predator's finally made someone nervous. I thanked him. Then I sat on my bed in the dark and waited for the next wave. It came. Mom showed up, unannounced. I was folding towels when I heard the knock. Not frantic, just steady, like she had every right to be there. I opened the door and saw her standing in her beige jacket, the one she wore to church functions. Hair curled, lips tight, eyes swollen but dry. Can I come in? She asked. I didn't move. Say why you're here first. Her nostrils flared. You called the police on Rick. I told the truth about Rick, I corrected. She stepped back like the word truth was acid. You're going to ruin his life, she said, voice low. I blinked. He ruined mine. She swallowed hard. We had a life, Emily. We were okay. We weren't rich, but we managed. He helped. He was stable. You don't understand what it's like raising a kid alone, not knowing how to buy groceries or fix the plumbing. I cut her off. So you sold me for stability. That shut her up. For a moment, she looked old. Not just tired. Old. Like the weight of all those years was finally settling on her shoulders. Like she remembered the night she told me it was probably just a misunderstanding and hated herself for how easy it came out. Then she broke. Emily, she whispered, I didn't know what to do. I was scared. I was broke. You were so little, and I thought, if I just kept everything together, you'd grow up okay. I stared at her like she was a stranger in my doorway. You thought surviving would fix what he did to me? She said nothing. Then I stepped aside, not to let her in, to close the door. Software, not a slam. I didn't need a dramatic ending. The silence said more than a scream ever could. Behind that door, I heard her cry, the kind of cry I'd begged for when I was 12, the kind she wouldn't give me then, the kind that came too late now. Let her sit with it. Let her remember the price of quiet. After that day, my mother stopped calling. No more texts, no more guilt trips wrapped in emojis and Sunday church quotes. Just nothing. I thought I'd feel relief. I thought I'd finally be able to exhale. But silence, real silence, the kind that comes after the explosion, is different. It's heavier. It doesn't hum like peace. It sits like dust on your chest. Then the letters started coming, not from her, from people I barely remembered: Aunt Marlene, Cousin Josh, even Pastor Harold from the church we went to twice a year just to look normal. All of them said the same thing in different fonts. We're praying for your healing. We're shocked by what we've heard. We just wish you had come to us sooner. Sooner, I was 12. Where the hell were they then? Pastor Harold even wrote in his nice calligraphy, Rick was always generous. He never missed a tithing envelope. Are you sure this isn't just a misunderstanding? I read that line 10 times. Then I burned the letter over my kitchen sink. A week later, the detective called again. There are other reports, he said. 2, maybe more coming. I couldn't breathe for a second. Other girls, other versions of me. The guilt came hard and fast. Was my silence their silence too? Was my not speaking the reason he kept doing it? I told Sarah. She held my hand across the table and said, No, the only person responsible for what Rick did is Rick. You were a child. You were trying to survive. Still, the shame lingered. It lives in the walls of your throat even when your hands are clean. One night I walked past the diner window and saw my reflection. Not just the usual tired girl in a cheap coat. I saw her, the version of me I was when I first moved out. Scared, small, hoping the nightmares would stop just because the door had a new lock. And suddenly I thought, maybe the only reason the family stayed intact all these years was because I didn't say anything. Not because they loved each other. Not because we were close, but because I held the rot in my mouth like a secret and never spit it out. That's what scared them now. Not Rick's actions, but the fact that I wasn't their shield anymore. And without me, everything fell apart. I got one more call. It was from Rick. Blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. He left 5 seconds of breathing, then said, I don't know what you told them, but I hope you're happy. I saved it, not as proof, as a reminder that men like him will always paint themselves as victims, that mothers like mine will call it a sacrifice, that families like ours aren't broken. They're built on breaking girls who don't fight back. Well, I'm fighting now, not with fists, with words. And maybe that's what terrifies them most. It's been 7 months since I told the truth out loud. 7 months since I walked into a small windowless room and gave a statement that cracked the foundation of my family like a fault line finally shifting under years of pressure. Rick's under investigation now. No charges yet, but the DA says there's a pattern. That word felt strange at first. Pattern. Like this wasn't just my story. Like I'd been woven into something bigger without even knowing it. One of the other girls who came forward is 24. The other is 16. I don't know their names. I don't need to. What I do know is that my story gave them permission. That's the part no one talks about. How silence spreads like mold. How speaking, even just once, can make the whole thing collapse. And collapse it did. Rick moved out of my mom's house. I heard through Becca that he's living in some cheap rental across town now. No coaching, no community barbecues, no Facebook posts about stepdad pride. Just a man sitting in the dark with his history finally dragging behind him like rusted chains. My mom? She stopped calling altogether. The last message she sent said, I can't do this, Emily. I just wanted peace in this family. You destroyed that. I didn't respond, because I know the truth now. Peace isn't silence. Peace is safety. Peace is a locked door that no one else has the key to but you. Peace is sleeping through the night and waking up without that split-second moment of panic that someone might be watching. Peace is mine now. I started therapy again. Real therapy, not the first visit kind. The kind where the wounds get unstitched slowly. Where you cry over things that happened decades ago and don't feel stupid for it. My therapist said something last week that stuck with me. You don't owe forgiveness to people who never asked for it, especially if they only want it to feel better about themselves. So I stopped trying to forgive my mother. Not out of hate, just out of honesty. She made her choice, and I'm allowed to make mine. I still work at the diner, not because I have to, but because I want to. There's comfort in the routine, in pouring coffee for truckers at 3 a.m., in wiping down the counter and hearing someone say, Thanks, sweetheart, without expecting anything in return. Sarah and I still talk. Sometimes we just sit on park benches, not even discussing the case, just sharing space, like proof that survival doesn't have to be lonely. I think the biggest surprise is how light I feel now. Not happy, not whole, not yet, but light. Like I set down a backpack I didn't know I'd been carrying for 17 years. And now? Now I tell the truth when I want to, not for closure, not for revenge, but because the one thing they always feared was that I'd open my mouth. So I did, and I'm not done because someone out there is 12 years old and trying to lock their door with a chair. And maybe they'll hear this and realize it's not their fault, that the people who chose silence over their safety were wrong, and that they too can get out, and that even if the house stays warm, they are not the ones who need to stay frozen.